we're talking to Mr. Paco Magsaysay of Carmen's Best Ice Cream. Ice cream being my kryptonite, but you know, I started asking you about the future of Carmen's Best, but the past is also quite interesting. My impression was, and you have to correct me if I'm wrong here, Paco, you were initially into dairy farming, or your family, the enterprise was dairy farming, and then you wanted to, if I remember correctly from the things I've read, you wanted to show people what they could do with the milk they bought from you, and hence this ice cream venture. Did you see yourself as successful in that regard, or it didn't matter anymore because of what you've achieved with Carmen's Best?
Well, my father would always say, let 1,000 flowers bloom.
Right.
So he wanted other entrepreneurs to use the milk or to use the dairy that we were coming up with to make a business out of it. And the reason I got into dairy, meaning making ice cream, was because we were throwing away a lot of milk.
Okay.
Now, why were we throwing it away? We were throwing it away because it only has a shelf life of 7 to 10 days.
Even if you pasteurize or what's the
Pasteurize and homogenize.
Yeah, there's a UHT, ultra high temperature pasteurization, right?
Yeah,
It
so
still
UHT is very different from fresh milk.
Right.
Yeah, so we were throwing away a lot of milk, and I told my dad, sayang naman, it's a waste because it's, you know, coming from the cows, and the cows have a special diet and all these things. And I said, why don't I try making something with the milk just to prolong the life, or just so we won't throw it away.
Yeah.
So in 2009, I incorporated a company called Carmen's Best Dairy Products.
Okay.
Kasi I didn't know we were going to make ice cream.
Okay.
Yeah, so Carmen's Best Dairy Products was incorporated in 2009, but it was in 2011 that we started selling ice cream. So it took a while for us, my team, to figure out that we were just going to do ice cream.
Right, right. Going or revisiting that experience, and having as a backdrop, you know, all of the attention that agriculture gets now, because of the president handling the Department of Agriculture himself, right? What are some of the things that would have made your lives easier, your venture more successful back then? Had it been for some policies that you think would have been nice to have when you were starting out?
Yeah, I think if we got some sort of tax break, a discounted tax rate, for the first 3 years.
So despite the fact you're a Magsaysay, you had no...
I had no leverage.
Had no privilege, okay.
Yeah, because in fact my father's last term in the Senate was 2007.
Okay.
But we incorporated 2009.
Okay.
And we started selling 2011.
Okay.
So even up to this day, I'm proud to say that we don't have any government accounts.
Okay.
So all our accounts are private, from the private sector. But thinking of what you just asked me regarding support from the government, I mean, to get a discounted tax rate or a break in taxes for these startups, and understanding that more than 97-98% of startups fail in the first 3 years.
Right.
This would be a huge help for these guys. You know, maybe we can increase it by 10 or 15% success rate. So instead of just having a 2 or 3% success rate after the third year, you're looking at 17 or 18% successful startups from the first 3 years. You know, that would be huge, because the SMEs give so much employment. You know, whether it's in the rural areas or even in Metro Manila. So that would be one huge help. I think working also the banks, because from what I understand, the banks are obliged to set aside a certain percentage of their
10%, according to the Magna Carta.
Yeah, of the total loanable portfolio.
That's right.
But it costs them a lot of money to work on a small loan compared to a bigger loan, and they make so much more money doing a bigger loan, right? So
that's very troubling for me to hear, because my argument before was that these are not implemented. These provisions of the Magna Carta are not implemented because there's no social preparation. But you're no ordinary person. I mean, you come from a well-to-do family, into politics. the fact that you were having problems
Yes, I
getting
was having
loans,
problems.
then there's a serious problem.
Yeah. Even working with, I won't anymore mention which government agency, but other government agencies.
Okay.
As an SME, it's quite challenging. So I can see where people can just, quit and just say, I'm just going to remain micro enterprise, then try to, level up and make the company bigger.
Right.
Yeah.
No, one of the things, I sort of, not in the scale as you started in, but, I was thinking, I had gone into a bit of livestock myself. Yeah. One of the problems I had, and I was wanting to ask you about this, the availability of breeder stocks, because, if you don't have milking cows, you don't have milk, right? So, but they're not so easy to source locally. How did you get started? Where did you buy your stock? Did you end up crossbreeding them to grow the number of heads you have?
Well, my father worked with the Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
They had a program with the National Dairy Authority.
Okay.
For a cattle disbursement.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, it was for every one pregnant heifer you get, you have to pay back a pregnant heifer after 5 years.
Okay.
That turned out to be a very difficult sort of structure for dairy farmers, But eventually, they had to scrap that model of.
Why was it difficult? Was it because of the survival rate of the calves, or was it something else?
It's a combination of survival, combination of market. Maintaining a healthy cow in that 5 years is quite expensive because of the amount of feed that it takes, the amount of vitamins and so on.
Right.
So,
and to be clear, for those who don't understand, if they're not healthy, they're not productive. They're not productive. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes even with the udders of the cow, you have four udders. If one gets mastitis, then that's it. You're going to be producing only 3/4 of the total milk it would have produced.
Right.
So if you have two udders with mastitis, then you're down to 50%.
Right.
But yet the feed that you have to give it is still the same 100%. So it's not an easy business to get into, and there's a reason why the big families don't get into farming. So big family businesses.
So if the government is looking, well, there's Paco Magsaysay, maybe one of we tap in for agriculture, but if you were running that program, the livestock program, I've heard about this, but I've actually met very few people who, I'm sure there are people who benefited from it, but how could it be improved? I know we can't turn the clock back, right? But if we were looking forward, how could it be improved to encourage people like you, or your people with situation like you back then, to go into it and scale and invest more?
Well, when the NDA talks to potential families who want to take in several cows or so, they just talk about how much they can sell the milk, how many liters they can get from each cow, but sometimes they fail to talk about how much it costs to maintain a cow.
The inputs.
They don't really get to explain that properly. I think that one of the main reasons why our farm survived is because there's a brand. At the end of the day, we have a brand that we make. There's an added value that we sell the product for. So that covers some things on the farm side. No? So if you're just going to be selling raw milk, whether it's goat's milk, carabao milk, or what, and you're not doing the added value, it's very difficult to keep it going.
Right. Yeah. Well, what other programs do you think what other government programs do you think would have helped back then? Because am I correct? The dairy farm started a few years before Carmen's Best, right? So you had some other set of problems with the dairy farm side, in addition to launching a new brand, right? So what are some of the other things that would have been better for you back then?
Well, I think if you were to take 2 or 3 steps back and not limit it to dairy farming or farming of cattle in general, I would approach it as what product do you want to make? Or what who is your market?
Okay.
Right? Then let's say you have a piece of land and then you start saying, oh, I want to plant dragon fruit.
Right.
Right? And then because it's quite easy to set up dragon fruit, it's not hard to grow dragon fruit. But when it's done, who's the market for dragon fruit?
Right.
Right? There's not a lot of market for dragon fruit. So sometimes we have to look at the market first, or what you want to what you want to make, and then work backwards.
Right.
So I think a lot of people who want to get into farming, they don't do the soil test. They don't check the altitude of where their land is and so on. So sometimes they plant the wrong things, or they do the wrong things there. Yeah.
Right. But what are some of the things that when you start making milk, right? The obvious thing is you have, as you said, look for the market.
Yeah.
Is there something the government could do there to maybe help connect you with the market, or you have to fend on your own? I mean, find that on yourself.
There are programs with. I think the Department of Education, where you can supply milk to public schools.
Okay.
And they would pay for this milk that you'd be delivering to the schools. But sometimes it's hard if you're making milk a certain way. Like ours is 100% fresh milk.
Right.
But maybe other farms might not be following the same standard as what you're doing.
Right.
So your cost of your milk is already different from what they're doing. And I think sometimes standards are not really followed. So for people who are doing it the proper way, or not mixing any water or additives in it,
diluting it,
dilute it, then it's no longer a fair market, because it's not the same product anymore.
So there's no, is there now? I mean, is there such a standard now, or is it still?
Well, there's a standard, but nobody really checks, and no one's ever been caught. So.
Right, that's another problem. Anyway, that's so interesting. But anyway, we'll be right back with Mr. Paco Magsaysay of Carmen's Best Ice Cream. You're watching SMNI's Business and Politics. We'll be right back.